I felt her gaze on me before I saw her. My wife's eyes, normally warm and inviting, darted away the moment I turned. Sarah quickly tucked her phone into her pocket, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she greeted another guest. "Nick, there you are." Michael from accounting clapped my shoulder, his grip a touch too firm. "Beautiful house, man. You've really made it." His eyes flicked over my shoulder to where Sarah stood, then immediately back to me. A flash of something, guilt, crossed his face before he raised his glass in a mock toast and melted back into the crowd of our housewarming party. The evening air carried the scent of Sarah's signature rosemary chicken and the laughter of our guests as they wandered through our new 4-bedroom colonial. The crown jewel of suburbia, with its marble countertops and spacious backyard where Jacob, our 9-year-old, could practice his fastball for Little League. "Dad, Mrs. Thompson wants to hear me play." Emma tugged at my sleeve, her 13-year-old confidence momentarily seeking approval. My daughter, the pianist, whose recitals had become a neighborhood event. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, following her to the living room where our baby grand, the one luxury I'd insisted on, gleamed under recessed lighting. The guests gathered as Emma's fingers danced across the keys, Chopin's Nocturne filling our new home. I caught Sarah's eye across the room and for a moment, everything was perfect. 15 years of marriage, 2 incredible kids, and now this house, all made possible by my promotion at the financial firm. "You've built quite the perfect little family," Linda from next door whispered, champagne glass in hand. "Sarah must be so proud." I nodded, watching my wife chat animatedly with a group of teachers from her elementary school. Yet something felt off. The way her laugh seemed practiced. The 4th time in an hour she checked her phone. Hours later, after the last guest had departed with promises of barbecues and dinner parties, I found Sarah in our bedroom, her back to me as she swiped rapidly through her phone. "That went well?" I said, loosening my tie. She startled, nearly dropping the device. "God, Nick, you scared me." She quickly pressed a few buttons before setting the phone face down. "Yes, everyone loved the house." "Everything okay?" I gestured toward her phone. "Just clearing out some congrats messages," she said, her voice a touch too high. "I'm exhausted. Mind checking on the kids while I shower?" I kissed her cheek, breathing in her perfume, different from her usual scent, something new I hadn't bought her, and headed to the children's rooms. Jacob lay sprawled across his baseball-themed bedding, trophy from last season's championship gleaming on his dresser. His face in sleep was pure innocence, though I couldn't help but notice for the first time how little he resembled me. Just a coincidence, I told myself. Genetics are complex. In Emma's room, sheet music was scattered across her desk, a testament to her dedication. She'd inherited my dark hair and analytical mind, often questioning everything. Lately she'd been asking why Sarah was acting weird. Kids notice everything. Downstairs, I collected abandoned glasses and plates, the detritus of social success. A crumpled napkin under the coffee table caught my eye. Smoothing it out, I found a receipt from Giovanni's, an Italian place downtown. Dated last Wednesday, when Sarah had her curriculum planning session. The time stamp read 8:30 p.m. The planning sessions always ended at 5. My stomach tightened as I noticed the charge. Dinner for 2 plus a bottle of wine. $87. I stood in my perfect new kitchen in my perfect new house, the receipt burning in my hand like a lit fuse. I remembered Michael's awkward glance, Sarah's password-protected phone, the missing afternoons and evening meetings that had become so frequent. The receipt fluttered to the counter as I heard the shower shut off upstairs. I should confront her. Ask directly. But something held me back, fear, perhaps, of shattering this carefully constructed life. Instead, I quietly slipped the paper into my wallet. The first piece of evidence in a case I never wanted to build. Upstairs, Sarah was already in bed, her wet hair darkening the pillow, eyes closed in feigned sleep. I slid in beside her, the distance between us suddenly vast despite the inches. In the darkness, I stared at the ceiling of our dream home, listening to the unfamiliar creaks of new construction, and the even more unfamiliar feeling that everything I believed about my life might be built on lies. Morning light filtered through our new custom blinds as I pretended to sleep, watching Sarah through half-closed eyes. She stood before our walk-in closet, trying on outfits I'd never seen before. A silk blouse replaced by a fitted dress, replaced by a pencil skirt that hugged her hips in ways her usual teacher attire never did. When had she bought these clothes? Certainly not on our shopping trips together. "You're up early," I said, finally announcing my consciousness. She flinched slightly. "Parent-teacher conferences today. Need to look professional." Her eyes didn't meet mine in the mirror. You never dressed like that for conferences before. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Sarah's shoulders tensed. What's that supposed to mean? I can't update my wardrobe without an interrogation? It wasn't an interrogation, just an observation. I sat up, trying to keep my voice casual despite the tightness in my chest. Well, it felt like one. She grabbed her makeup bag with unnecessary force. This is exactly why I don't tell you things anymore. The constant control. Control? In 15 years of marriage, I'd never once dictated what she wore, where she went, who she saw. The accusation felt deliberate, as if she were constructing a narrative where I was the villain. I dressed for work in silence, the morning routine with the kids a welcome distraction. Emma practiced piano before the bus came, her dedication a point of pride. Jacob wolfed down cereal while reciting baseball statistics, his enthusiasm infectious despite my growing unease. As I dropped my coffee mug in the sink, I noticed Sarah's phone on the counter. She was upstairs helping Jacob find his cleats for after-school practice. Before I could reconsider, I picked it up, locked of course with a new password I didn't know. When had that changed? At work I couldn't focus. Spreadsheets blurred before my eyes as memories of recent months crystallized into a pattern. Sarah's new yoga class that ran suspiciously late. The girls' nights that left no evidence on social media. The way she turned her phone face down whenever I entered a room. Martinez, you coming to the budget meeting? My boss poked his head into my office. Be right there, I answered, opening my desk drawer where I'd stashed the Giovanni's receipt. On impulse, I pulled up my online banking. Our joint credit card showed no charge from the restaurant. She'd paid cash or used a card I didn't know about. That evening, parent-teacher conferences meant family dinner was my responsibility. After homework and bats, I sat with Emma on the piano bench as she practiced a challenging Beethoven piece. You seem sad, Dad, she said during a pause, her perceptiveness startling. Just tired, sweetheart. I attempted a reassuring smile. She frowned, unconvinced. Mom's acting weird, isn't she? She's always on her phone and gets mad if I come in her room without knocking now. Out of the mouths of babes. Adults sometimes go through phases, I offered weakly. After tucking the kids in, I found myself in front of our home computer. Our phone bill was paperless, the statement accessible online. With a twinge of guilt that quickly evaporated, I logged in. The call history revealed a number that appeared dozens of times, often late at night or during Sarah's supposed work meetings. The text message count to this same number was in the hundreds, though I couldn't see their content. I wrote down the number, a cold determination replacing my earlier uncertainty. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was investigation. 2 days later, after Jacob's baseball game, his coach approached me in the parking lot. Great game today, Mr. Martinez. Your boy's got a natural arm. He hesitated. By the way, I saw your wife at Riverside Cafe yesterday. Didn't want to interrupt her lunch meeting, seemed pretty intense. My heart skipped. Lunch meeting? Yeah, with some guy in a suit. Corporate type. He glanced at his watch. Gotta run, see you Tuesday. Sarah had told me she was shopping for classroom supplies yesterday. Riverside Cafe was nowhere near any school supply store. That night, during our family weekend movie, Sarah's phone buzzed repeatedly. She checked it under the blanket, the screen's glow illuminating her face in the darkened room. I glimpsed the contact name, Carol. Something about her slight smile, the way she angled the phone away from me, I knew instinctively Carol wasn't a woman. After the kids were asleep, I searched our closet while Sarah showered. In the back, behind winter sweaters, I found a shopping bag containing black lace lingerie with tags still attached. Not my Christmas or birthday present, I would have remembered that purchase. The price tag made me wince. $170? Teacher's salary indeed. When Sarah announced she was having dinner with the girls from school the following Friday, I nodded and said I'd handle bedtime for the kids. But as she kissed me goodbye, perfume clouding my senses, I'd already decided. Tonight I would know the truth. I called my sister to watch the kids, claiming a work emergency. Then I followed my wife into the gathering darkness, heart hammering against my ribs, already mourning what I knew I was about to lose. My sedan idled 2 blocks from our house until Sarah's car passed, her silhouette illuminated by streetlights. Heart pounding in my throat, I followed at a distance, notebook on the passenger seat where I'd been documenting every suspicious activity for the past week. She didn't drive toward downtown where her teacher friends usually met. Instead, she headed to Riverview, the upscale district with white tablecloth restaurants and boutique hotels. She parallel parked with practiced ease, strange for someone who claimed to hate downtown parking, and checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before stepping out in a dress I'd never seen. I parked across the street, slouched in my seat, and watched as she walked with purpose toward La Maison, a French restaurant where I'd once suggested we celebrate our anniversary. Too expensive, she'd said then. Through the window, I saw her approach a table where a man sat waiting. My breath caught as he stood to greet her. Michael, my colleague and supposed friend. His hand lingered at the small of her back as he guided her into her seat. I photographed them with my phone, hands shaking. They ordered wine, leaned close in conversation, their fingers intertwining on the table. Each touch was a knife between my ribs. After their meal, they didn't separate. Michael draped his jacket over her shoulders as they strolled toward the Lakeview Hotel. I followed on foot, maintaining distance, a detached part of my mind wondering if this was really my life, stalking my wife and colleague like a character in some tawdry thriller. I didn't need to see more, but some masochistic instinct kept me rooted to the spot across from the hotel entrance. I timed her departure, 2 hours and 17 minutes later. Evidence gathered, case closed. When Sarah returned home near midnight, hair slightly mussed, she found me in the living room reviewing Jacob's baseball schedule. How were the girls? I asked, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. Good. She dropped her purse, kicked off her heels. Melissa's going through a divorce. It was mostly listening to her vent. The lie slid off her tongue so naturally I almost doubted my own eyes. That's too bad about Melissa, I said, turning a page in the calendar. You're a good friend. Her smile faltered slightly at my calm demeanor. I'm exhausted. Heading to bed. I'll be up soon. Once alone, I made a decision. No confrontation yet, I needed more. Needed to understand the full scope of her betrayal. The next morning, I contacted Elena Kowalska, a divorce attorney whose reputation preceded her. Document everything, she advised in her slight Ukrainian accent during our consultation. Bank statements, phone records, photographs. You need evidence before confrontation. I hired a private investigator, an expense that made me wince but seemed necessary. Within a week, he delivered a report that stole the air from my lungs. The affair with Michael Peterson has been ongoing for approximately 3 years, he explained, sliding photographs across his desk. Sarah and Michael entering various hotels. Lunch dates. Michael kissing her in his car. 3 years. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Based on our surveillance and digital forensics, yes. He hesitated. There's more. She has a separate bank account at First National, opened 4 years ago. Regular transfers from your joint account, usually after you deposit your paycheck. The PI provided account numbers, transfer dates, amounts. Nearly $40,000 over 4 years, siphoned from our family finances. Money that could have been in our children's college funds. But the worst revelation came from an unexpected source. At a neighborhood barbecue, our former neighbor Tom approached me, beer in hand. How's it going, Nick? Jacob's looking great on the field, though he's sure got his mother's build, doesn't he? Never would have guessed he was yours if I didn't know better. His words echoed in my head for days. Looking at Jacob with new eyes, I noticed what I'd willfully ignored. His lean frame so unlike my stockier build, the shape of his eyes, his smile. I scheduled a paternity test, telling myself I was being paranoid, praying I was wrong. The results arrived by email one Tuesday morning at work. I opened the attachment with trembling fingers. Probability of paternity, 0%. The office bathroom provided privacy for the breakdown that followed. My son, not my son. 9 years of love, baseball games, bedtime stories, all built on lies. That evening, scrolling through old photos, I found pictures from the New Year's party where we'd celebrated discovering Sarah was pregnant with Jacob. Michael was there, arms slung around Sarah's shoulders, champagne in hand. I'd thought nothing of it then. The private investigator's final report detailed financial improprieties I hadn't imagined possible from my elementary school teacher wife. Offshore accounts. Hidden assets. A systematic plan to build a separate financial life. I gathered everything, photos, bank statements, paternity test, phone records, into a folder. Then I consulted with Elena again, who advised strategic patience. Don't confront her until we've secured your finances and prepared legal protection, she warned. Women like this often escalate dramatically when exposed. That night, I installed hidden cameras in our home, not for voyeurism but self-protection. The man I saw in the mirror looked tired, haunted, resolved. Tomorrow I would begin transferring assets, securing my rights to Emma, protecting what remained of my family. The truth had been uncovered, and it was far uglier than I had imagined. But knowledge, painful as it was, had given me one precious resource: the chance to prepare for the storm ahead. I chose a Tuesday evening for the confrontation. Tuesdays were routine: family dinner, homework, maybe a board game. Nothing special about Tuesdays. "I made your favorite," Sarah announced, setting a casserole on the dining table. "Chicken parmesan." Emma and Jacob took their usual seats, chattering about school. I watched them, memorizing their faces in this last moment of innocence. Sarah caught my gaze and misinterpreted it as appreciation. "Wine?" she offered, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Not tonight." I waited until the children had filled their plates. "Kids, could you please take your dinner to the media room? There's a documentary about marine life I recorded for you." Emma's forehead creased with suspicion. We never ate in front of the TV, but she took her plate without argument. Jacob followed, glancing back curiously. When they were gone, I placed the manila folder on the table between us. Sarah's eyes fixed on it, her fork suspended midway to her mouth. "What's that?" A tremor in her voice betrayed her composure. "The truth." I opened the folder and methodically laid out its contents. Photographs of her with Michael entering hotels, bank statements showing transfers to her secret account, the DNA test results. Sarah's face drained of color. She set her fork down with a deliberate calm that seemed more threatening than any outburst. "You've been following me." Her voice was ice. "Invading my privacy." "That's your response? Not to the 3-year affair with my colleague, or the $40,000 you've hidden, or the fact that you lied about Jacob's paternity?" My voice remained steady, surprising even me. Sarah's expression shifted, eyes narrowing, calculating. "You have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done. I've uncovered your lies. All of them." She pushed her plate away, chin raised in defiance. "You think you know everything? You don't know the first thing about being trapped in a suffocating marriage with a controlling husband who only cares about appearances." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. "Controlling? When have I ever controlled you?" "This?" She gestured at the evidence. "Following me, checking my bank records, invading my privacy. What would you call it?" "I'd call it discovering the truth about a woman who's been lying to me for years. A woman who let me raise another man's child without my knowledge." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "Jacob is more your son than he'll ever be Michael's. Don't you dare use him as a weapon." "I'm not the one who weaponized our family, Sarah. You did that the first time you slept with Michael, and every day you perpetuated these lies." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You want the truth? Fine. I've been unhappy for years. Michael gives me what you can't: passion, excitement, understanding." "And a secret bank account? Does he give you that too?" Her laugh was bitter. "Insurance. Women need insurance in this world. You've just proven exactly why. By discovering your infidelity? By becoming a threat." She grabbed her purse. "This conversation is over. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the evidence of our fractured life. I sat motionless, the quiet house pressing in around me. The cameras I'd installed would have recorded everything: her admissions, her lack of remorse. Small comfort now. I checked on the children, who were absorbed in sea turtles migrating across the Pacific. Their innocence felt like a physical ache in my chest. Sarah returned 3 hours later, not alone. A thin man in an expensive suit followed her into the living room, where I sat waiting. "Nicholas Martinez?" He extended a business card. "Howard Kleinman, attorney. I'm representing your wife in this unfortunate situation." Before I could respond, he handed me a document. "This is a temporary restraining order. You're required to vacate the premises immediately and maintain a distance of at least 200 feet from Mrs. Martinez and your children." "On what grounds?" The words felt strangled in my throat. "Emotional abuse, controlling behavior, stalking, and creating an unsafe environment." His clinical tone made the absurd allegations sound reasonable. "Mrs. Martinez has provided sworn testimony about your erratic behavior and intimidation tactics." Sarah stood behind him, eyes triumphant. "I didn't want it to come to this, Nick. You need help." Police officers appeared in the doorway. She'd planned this perfectly. I barely registered their presence as my mind raced through implications. The children asleep upstairs. My home. My life. All being stripped away based on fabricated claims. "You'll be allowed to collect essential personal items under officer supervision," Kleinman explained. "Any attempt to contact Mrs. Martinez or the children will result in your arrest." I need to say goodbye to my children. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "That won't be possible tonight," Sarah interjected. "It would be too traumatic for them." "Traumatic?" As if waking to find their father gone without explanation wouldn't be traumatic. "Officer, could I see the order?" My hands were surprisingly steady as I reviewed the document. Sarah's sworn statement described a husband I didn't recognize, volatile, threatening, obsessively tracking her movements. The signature of a judge I didn't know made it real. I looked at Sarah, this stranger wearing my wife's face. "You won't get away with this." Her expression softened with practiced concern. "See, Howard? This is exactly the threatening behavior I mentioned." 20 minutes later, I stood on the sidewalk with a hastily packed suitcase, watching officers cordon off what had been my life. Through the upstairs window, I could see Emma's silhouette, a silent witness to the destruction of our family. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a notification. Our joint bank accounts had been emptied. Sarah had taken everything. The Bluebird Motel's neon sign buzzed outside my window, casting an eerie glow across the stained carpet. At $79 a night, it was all I could afford after discovering my credit cards had been maxed out and my accounts drained. 3 days of living out of a suitcase, surviving on vending machine snacks and convenience store coffee while my family, my life, continued without me. My phone rang. Elena Kowalska, the attorney I'd consulted before the confrontation. Thank God I'd paid her initial retainer in advance. "Nicholas, I've reviewed the restraining order." Her Ukrainian accent grew more pronounced when she was angry. "This is textbook alienation strategy. She's using the system against you. Can you fight it?" I stared at the water stain on the ceiling, shaped vaguely like South America. "Absolutely. But you need to understand, family courts move slowly, and they're often biased against fathers." Elena didn't sugarcoat reality. "The temporary order stands until the hearing, which could be weeks away. I can't go weeks without seeing my children." "Your children." Her voice softened slightly. "Even with the paternity test, Jacob is legally yours. You've been his father for 9 years." A knock at the door made me jump. Paranoia had become my constant companion. "I need to go," I told Elena. "Can we meet tomorrow?" Through the peephole, I saw a courier with an envelope. More legal documents. Sarah had filed for divorce, demanding full custody, the house, and alimony despite her secret funds. The casual cruelty of legalese describing the dissolution of my family made my stomach turn. The next morning, Elena's office provided a stark contrast to my motel room. Modern furniture, awards on the walls, the smell of fresh coffee. "Call me Elena," she insisted, pouring me a cup. "We're going to be spending a lot of time together." Her directness was refreshing after days of bewilderment. "I've reviewed everything," she said. "Sarah is claiming a pattern of controlling behavior and emotional abuse. She's painting herself as a victim who had an affair because she felt trapped." "That's ridiculous. I have evidence." "Evidence obtained by following her and accessing her financial records without permission." Elena leaned forward. "In a different context, these actions seem controlling. So she's the victim because I caught her cheating? Welcome to the system, Nicholas." Elena sighed. "It's not fair, but we need to be strategic. Your wife has clearly planned this for months, maybe years." The full impact of Sarah's manipulation hit me anew. While I'd been coaching Jacob's baseball team and attending Emma's recitals, she'd been constructing an escape plan, complete with manufactured evidence and a curated victim narrative. "What about the children?" My voice cracked. "We've filed for an emergency hearing regarding visitation." Elena passed me another document. "But Sarah's claiming you're unstable and potentially violent. She's requested supervised visitation only." "Supervised? I've never." "I know." Elena's eyes were kind but firm. "But the court will err on the side of caution where children are concerned. For now you'll need to comply." 3 days later, I sat in a sterile room at the Family Services building, waiting to see my children under the watchful eye of a court-appointed supervisor. The door opened and Emma entered first, her face a mask of confusion and hurt. "Dad." Her voice was small, uncertain. I rose, wanting to hug her but sensing her hesitation. "Hi, sweetie." Jacob hung back, not meeting my eyes. "Mom said you left because you were angry at us." The pain was physical, a vice squeezing my chest. "That's not true. I would never leave you voluntarily. I love you both more than anything." The supervisor watched our interaction, making notes. Every word felt weighted, scrutinized. Emma sat beside me, keeping a careful distance. "Mom's been crying a lot. She said you were spying on her and became dangerous." "Your mother and I are having adult problems," I said carefully, aware of the supervisor's pen scratching across her notepad. "But none of this is your fault, and I'm doing everything I can to see you again properly." Jacob remained standing, arms crossed defensively. If you didn't do anything wrong, why can't you come home? How do you explain a corrupt system to a 9-year-old? Sometimes grown-ups need time apart to work through problems. But my love for you never changes. The visit lasted an excruciating hour. Emma gradually relaxed, showing me pictures from her recent piano competition. Jacob eventually sat down but remained withdrawn, flinching when I moved too quickly. What had Sarah told him? As they prepared to leave, Emma slipped me a folded paper. I made this for you. Later, alone in my car, I unfolded her drawing, our family outside our home, all holding hands with "Come home soon" written in her careful penmanship. I wept for the first time since this nightmare began. That evening, Elena called with news. Sarah's attorney has submitted a psychological evaluation request, claiming you exhibit narcissistic tendencies and paranoia. That's absurd. She's describing herself. I agree, which is why we're requesting psychological evaluations for both parties. Elena paused. Nicholas, her strategy is becoming clear. She's systematically destroying your reputation to secure full custody and maximum financial support. While living with the man who helped her betray me, the bitterness tasted like copper in my mouth. Not officially. Michael hasn't moved in, but our investigator has photographed his car at your house overnight repeatedly. I thought of my children sleeping under the same roof as the architect of our family's destruction. How do we fight this? Carefully. We gather evidence, build character witnesses, and prepare for a long battle. Elena's voice hardened with determination. The system may be flawed, but I've beaten it before. We'll expose Sarah for what she is. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. The text message contained a single line: I know what Sarah did to you. She did it to others before. Call me. I stared at the screen, hope and suspicion warring within me. Was this a trap or the ally I desperately needed? I sat in Westside Park for 20 minutes before the woman approached. Mid-30s, professionally dressed, nervously scanning the area before taking the bench beside me. I'd insisted on a public meeting place after agreeing to meet the mysterious texter. Nicholas Martinez? Her voice was soft, cultured. Yes. I studied her face, searching for familiarity. And you are? Danielle Reeves. She extended her hand, then withdrew it quickly. Former best friend of Sarah Martinez. My pulse quickened. Former? Very former. Danielle's smile was tight. Sarah has a pattern of discarding people when they've served their purpose or know too much. Wariness kept me silent, waiting. This could still be a trap. Sarah sending someone to gather more evidence of my supposed instability. Sensing my hesitation, Danielle opened her purse and removed a manila envelope. I've been following your case. It's not the first time she's done this. Inside the envelope were printouts of text messages, dozens of them, spanning several years. All from Sarah's number to Danielle's phone. I downloaded everything before I blocked her, Danielle explained. Read the ones I've highlighted. The messages made my blood run cold. Nick is so clueless. Working late again tonight. Meeting M at the usual place. Had to transfer another $2,000 today. Nick never checks the accounts anyway. Sometimes I think about just taking the kids and disappearing. Nick would probably just throw money at finding us. He's so predictable. M says he'll leave his wife when the time is right. We just need to be patient and keep building our escape fund. How long were you friends? I managed to ask, feeling sick. Since college. 20 years. Danielle's eyes held genuine pain. I was her maid of honor at your wedding. I vaguely remembered her now, darker hair then, standing beside Sarah in a lavender dress. Why are you showing me this? Danielle looked away, watching children play on distant swings. Because what she's doing to you is exactly what she did to Marie Kensington. The name meant nothing to me. A teacher at her school, Danielle explained. Sarah fabricated evidence that Marie was mistreating students because Marie had overheard Sarah on the phone with Michael. Within a month, Marie lost her job, her reputation, everything. And you said nothing? I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. I believed Sarah's version then. Shame colored her features. She's always been persuasive, making others the villains in her stories. It wasn't until I found her journal that I realized the truth. Her journal? Danielle nodded. Sarah keeps detailed records of her manipulations. She left her bag at my place once and I found it. That's when I saw entries about how she'd deliberately set Marie up. Why would she document her own wrongdoing? You don't understand. Danielle leaned closer. Sarah doesn't see it as wrongdoing. In her mind, she's always the victim, always justified. The journal was like a trophy collection, each successful manipulation a victory. A chill ran through me despite the warm day. Do you still have this journal? No. When I confronted her, she took it and cut me out of her life. But I have something perhaps more valuable. Danielle hesitated. Information about her psychiatric history. The world seemed to still around us. What psychiatric history? Sarah was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder during her senior year of college. She was briefly hospitalized after a particularly manipulative incident involving a professor. I struggled to process this information. 15 years of marriage and I'd never known. How could she hide something like that? Her parents paid for private treatment. Everything was kept quiet, records sealed. Danielle's expression softened with sympathy. And Sarah was prescribed medication that she apparently stopped taking right after your wedding. Her mother never said anything during all our years together. Veronica? She's terrified of Sarah. Always has been. Danielle shook her head. The entire family walks on eggshells around her. My mind raced with implications. Would you be willing to testify about this? About the text messages, what you know? That's why I contacted you. Determination replaced the nervousness in her eyes. Sarah needs to be stopped. What she's doing to you, to your children, it's calculated destruction. Sarah will come after you if you get involved. She already has. Danielle's smile was bitter now. Last week, I was passed over for a promotion after anonymous concerns were raised about my professional conduct. 3 days after I refused to testify on her behalf against you. We sat in silence, watching the park empty as afternoon faded toward evening. There's something else you should know, Danielle finally said. Sarah wasn't just unfaithful with Michael. There were others. The pain I thought had reached its limit found new depths. Others? At least 3 that I know of. Sarah views relationships as transactions. People are valuable only as long as they provide something she needs. I thought of our life together, the birthdays, anniversaries, quiet nights watching movies with the kids. Had any of it been real to her? As if reading my thoughts, Danielle touched my arm briefly. The version of Sarah you fell in love with doesn't exist. She creates personas to capture what she wants. Why help me? I asked. You're risking a lot. Danielle gathered her belongings, preparing to leave. Because I watched her destroy Marie and I did nothing. I can't live with that again. She handed me a flash drive. Medical records, text messages, everything I have. My contact information is there too. As she walked away, she paused and turned back. Be careful, Nicholas. When Sarah feels cornered, there's nothing she won't do to win. Nothing. I sat alone long after Danielle disappeared, the flash drive heavy in my palm. An ally had emerged from the shadows, offering weapons against my adversary. But the real revelation was far more disturbing. I had spent 15 years married to a stranger who had been waging war against me from the beginning. The battlefield was now clear, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I had ammunition of my own. The morning light streamed through Elena's office windows as we reviewed our strategy. 3 weeks had passed since meeting Danielle, and we transformed from defensive to offensive mode. The emergency hearing for revised custody is tomorrow, Elena said, organizing a stack of documents. We're well prepared. I nodded, exhaustion competing with determination. Sleepless nights in my new apartment, a slight upgrade from the motel but still a far cry from home, had become routine. The walls were bare except for Emma's drawings and photographs of both children. Tell me again what we can expect, I said. Elena's red fingernails tapped the table rhythmically. Judge Pearson is known for being thorough. He'll review all evidence before making any decisions about the temporary custody arrangement. And Sarah's medical records? We've filed the motion to release them. Her attorney is fighting it, of course. Elena smiled thinly. But Danielle's testimony about the diagnosis creates enough doubt that the judge may order an independent evaluation. I rubbed my temples, fighting a persistent headache. What about Sarah's parents? We've subpoenaed them both. Veronica has agreed to appear voluntarily. Elena looked impressed. That took courage, given what Danielle told us about their relationship. The night before, I'd received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly answering, I'd been shocked to hear Sarah's mother's voice. Nicholas, Veronica had said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to see you. We'd met at a diner just off the highway, Veronica constantly checking over her shoulder as if expecting Sarah to materialize. I should have told you years ago, she'd admitted, hands trembling around her coffee cup. When Sarah was 20, she had a breakdown after manipulating a professor into a relationship, then threatening him when he tried to end it. Danielle mentioned a hospitalization. Veronica nodded. 3 months. The diagnosis was clear: narcissistic personality disorder with borderline features. She was prescribed medication, began therapy. She seemed better. Until our wedding, I added bitterly. She told us the doctors said she didn't need medication anymore. Veronica's eyes welled with tears. We wanted to believe her. It was easier than admitting she was still sick. Why come forward now? Because she's doing it again. Using Jacob and Emma as weapons. Her voice broke. My grandchildren deserve better. Now, sitting in Elena's office, that conversation felt like a turning point. Do you think Veronica will hold up under questioning? Elena considered this. Sarah's attorney will paint her as a resentful mother with a grudge. But if she sticks to the facts about Sarah's diagnosis and treatment, it will be powerful. And the subpoena for Sarah's psychiatric records? Still pending, but I'm optimistic. The judge takes child welfare seriously. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, our secret communication line. Sarah thought she was texting her piano teacher. Dad, Mom going through your old emails tonight. Looking for evidence. Said she needs more proof you were controlling. My daughter had become an unwilling spy in her own home, her loyalty torn between parents. The guilt was crushing. Sarah's digging through old emails, I told Elena. Let her. We have nothing to hide. Elena closed her laptop decisively. Now, have you made contact with Michael's wife? This had been Elena's masterstroke, approaching Jennifer Peterson with evidence of her husband's affair. She's agreed to meet tomorrow before the hearing. Elena nodded approval. Perfect timing. Having both betrayed spouses present will send a message. Later that day, I met Jennifer at a cafe far from both our homes. She was elegant, composed, and furious. 3 years, she said without preamble. 3 years he's been lying to my face while building a life with your wife. I recognized the raw pain in her eyes, a mirror of my own. I'm sorry you're going through this. Don't be. I'm glad to know the truth. Her voice was steel. What exactly do you need from me? Your presence at tomorrow's hearing. Your testimony that Michael has been involved with Sarah while she fabricated abuse claims against me. Jennifer's laugh was brittle. Oh, I'll be there. Michael doesn't know I know yet. I've been gathering evidence, securing assets. Her smile was grim. I've learned from your mistakes. And your children? Her expression softened slightly. Protected. Unlike Michael, I won't use them as pawns. That night, alone in my sparse apartment, I reviewed our strategy once more. Emma had texted again. Mom on phone with Michael for hours. Sounds worried. Keeps saying, they can't prove anything. My last supervised visit with the children had shown promising changes. Emma was openly affectionate, no longer doubting my version of events. Jacob remained distant but had asked questions about why I had spied on his mother. Sometimes, I'd explained carefully, when adults feel something is wrong, they look for answers. Like a detective? He'd asked, interest flickering briefly. Exactly like that. A detective seeking truth. It wasn't how I'd ever envisioned my role as a father, but it was necessary now, uncovering lies to protect what mattered most. As midnight approached, a new text arrived from an unknown number. Sarah knows about Danielle. Be careful tomorrow. The warning confirmed what I'd suspected. Sarah was growing desperate. Cornered predators are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. I double-checked the security on my apartment, a precaution that had become habit. Tomorrow would change everything, either the beginning of justice or a deeper descent into this nightmare. Sleep eluded me as I mentally prepared for battle. Not just for my reputation or financial security, but for my children's future. For the truth. Dawn broke with the certainty of conflict ahead, but for the first time in months, hope flickered alongside it. Today Sarah would face what she feared most: exposure. The courthouse loomed before me, a monument of stone and justice that would either save or destroy what remained of my family. Elena walked beside me, briefcase in hand, her posture radiating confidence I desperately needed to borrow. Remember, she murmured as we approached the entrance, stay calm regardless of what Sarah or her attorney says. Judge Pearson values composure. In the lobby, I spotted Danielle and Veronica sitting together on a bench, both tense but determined. Jennifer Peterson stood apart, elegantly dressed in a charcoal suit, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found me. She nodded once, a soldier acknowledging a comrade before battle. Elena touched my arm. Sarah just arrived. Don't engage. I turned to see my wife, still legally my wife, striding through the security checkpoint, her attorney Howard Kleinman at her side. She wore a conservative blue dress, hair pulled back, the perfect image of a wronged woman seeking protection. Her eyes met mine across the lobby, narrowing slightly before she leaned to whisper something to Kleinman. The courtroom felt suffocating, heavy with anticipation and the faint scent of furniture polish. I sat beside Elena at our table, acutely aware of Sarah directly behind us at hers. The physical proximity was jarring after weeks of restraining orders and supervised visits. Judge Pearson entered, a tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. After preliminary procedures, Elena rose to present our case. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Martinez has fabricated allegations against my client as part of a calculated strategy to secure favorable divorce terms and hide her own misconduct. Kleinman objected immediately, but Judge Pearson allowed Elena to continue. She methodically presented the timeline, the evidence of Sarah's affair, the financial deception. Furthermore, Elena continued, we have testimony regarding Mrs. Martinez's psychiatric history, which directly relates to her credibility and the children's welfare. I could feel Sarah's anger radiating from behind me, almost a physical force. When Veronica took the stand, Sarah audibly gasped. Mrs. Lawson, Elena addressed Sarah's mother, please tell the court about your daughter's psychiatric diagnosis. Veronica's voice trembled initially but strengthened as she spoke. Sarah was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder during her senior year of college. She was hospitalized after an incident with a professor. Objection. Kleinman was on his feet. This is hearsay and irrelevant to the current proceedings. Your Honor, Elena countered, Mrs. Martinez's mental health is directly relevant to her credibility and the validity of her allegations against my client. Judge Pearson considered briefly. I'll allow it, but stay focused on relevant information. Veronica detailed Sarah's diagnosis, treatment, and her decision to stop medication after our wedding. Throughout the testimony, I kept my eyes forward, refusing to turn and see Sarah's reaction. When Danielle took the stand, the tension in the room thickened. She presented the text messages and described Sarah's pattern of manipulation, her voice steady despite the weight of Sarah's glare. She boasted about how she would set up Nick to look controlling, Danielle testified. She called it her insurance policy, in case he ever discovered the affairs. Sarah's chair scraped loudly. This is ridiculous. She's lying. Her outburst drew all eyes to her. Mrs. Martinez, Judge Pearson warned, another interruption will result in a contempt citation. When Jennifer Peterson testified about discovering her husband's affair with Sarah, the final pieces clicked into place for everyone present. She brought financial records showing withdrawals coinciding with hotel stays, text messages between Michael and Sarah discussing their future together. Michael confessed everything when confronted, Jennifer stated coldly, including that he is likely the biological father of Jacob Martinez. The paternity test results were entered into evidence, and I finally allowed myself to glance at Sarah. Her face had transformed, the carefully composed victim mask slipping to reveal rage and calculation beneath. Your Honor, Elena said, we request the court to order an independent psychological evaluation of Mrs. Martinez and to revise the temporary custody order based on this new evidence. As Kleinman rose to counter, Sarah yanked at his sleeve, hissing something that made him look uncomfortable. He tried to proceed, but she interrupted repeatedly, eventually standing to address the judge directly. This is a conspiracy against me, she declared, voice rising. Nick has turned everyone against me with his lies. That DNA test is fake. Mrs. Martinez, you need to, Judge Pearson began. No. You need to listen. I've been victimized for years by his controlling behavior. These people are all lying for him. Mrs. Martinez, sit down and allow your counsel to. I won't sit down. This is my life, my children. Sarah's composure had completely fractured, her face contorted with indignation. I demand another DNA test from a lab I choose. Judge Pearson's expression hardened. Mrs. Martinez, you are in contempt. One more outburst and I'll have you removed from my courtroom. Kleinman frantically tried to calm her, but Sarah shrugged him off. You're useless, she spat loudly enough for the entire courtroom to hear. I'll represent myself. The judge sighed heavily. Mr. Kleinman, do you wish to withdraw as counsel? Sarah answered before he could. Yes, he's withdrawing. I don't need him. I can prove everything myself. For the next hour, Sarah attempted to cross-examine witnesses, her questions increasingly disjointed and accusatory. When Michael was called to testify about their relationship, She became visibly unhinged. Are you going to lie under oath, Michael? After everything we planned? Michael, ashen-faced under the combined glares of his wife and lover, admitted to the affair. When pressed about Jacob's paternity, he reluctantly acknowledged the possibility. Your Honor, Elena interjected, in light of the disputed paternity, we request an independent DNA test. Judge Pearson nodded. So ordered. Sarah's laugh was unsettling. This is absurd. You're all against me. Even you, Judge. You're probably friends with Nick, aren't you? Part of the same club? As the bailiff approached at the judge's signal, Sarah gathered her papers. Fine. I don't need this corrupt court. My children need me, not a father who stalks and controls and manipulates everyone. Judge Pearson's gavel came down with finality. Mrs. Martinez, you are in contempt. We'll reconvene tomorrow morning, and I expect you to be prepared to follow proper procedure. As Sarah was escorted out, still hurling accusations, Judge Pearson turned to me. Mr. Martinez, given today's testimony, I'm temporarily suspending the restraining order and granting you supervised visitation with your children 3 times weekly until a full evaluation is complete. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight on my chest lighten slightly. Not victory yet, but a step toward it. Outside the courtroom, Elena squeezed my shoulder. This is just the beginning, but it's a good one. Sarah showed her true colors today. Yes, she had. But as Danielle had warned, Sarah was most dangerous when cornered. And despite today's progress, I couldn't shake the fear that she had more weapons waiting to deploy. The next morning, Sarah didn't appear in court. Her new attorney, hastily acquired overnight, claimed she was indisposed due to emotional distress. Judge Pearson was unimpressed but granted a 24-hour continuance. She's planning something, Elena warned as we left the courthouse. This delay is tactical, not emotional. I nodded, distracted by the text from the court-appointed supervisor. Sarah had failed to bring the children for my scheduled visitation. Calls to her phone went straight to voicemail. By afternoon, panic had set in. Sarah wasn't at home, wasn't at school, wasn't answering calls from anyone, not even her mother. The children were missing from school as well. She's taken them, I told Elena, my voice hollow with fear. She's running. Elena immediately contacted the judge, who issued an emergency order for the children's return and notified law enforcement. Within hours, my private nightmare had become a police matter. She couldn't have gone far, Detective Rivera assured me as officers searched Sarah's house, my former house. We flagged her credit cards, passport, vehicle. I stood in my living room, now a crime scene of sorts, surveying the hastily abandoned space. Drawers hung open, clothes scattered, Emma's backpack gone but her piano books left behind. Jacob's baseball uniform was missing from its usual hook. Sir? An officer called from upstairs. You might want to see this. In the master bedroom, Sarah had created what the detective called an evidence wall. Photos of me, printouts of emails, notes in her handwriting connecting imaginary dots into a conspiracy only she could see. Classic paranoid behavior, Detective Rivera murmured, photographing the display. Has she shown signs of decompensation before? Not until the court hearing yesterday. I stared at this shrine to delusion, my face connected with lines to people I barely knew, locations I'd rarely visited. Mr. Martinez. The detective's voice pulled me back. We found something else. In the garage. Gas cans. 3 of them, purchased recently according to the receipt still in the bag. A box of matches. A notebook with rambling plans written in Sarah's normally neat handwriting, now jagged and pressed so hard it tore the paper in places. The detective closed her notebook. We're treating this as a credible threat now. Not just custodial interference. That night, I couldn't return to my apartment, couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe properly with my children in the wind. Elena insisted I stay at her house, concerned about what Sarah might do if she found me alone. We've alerted all ports, airports, bus terminals, Rivera updated us by phone. Her car was spotted heading east on the interstate 3 hours ago, but we lost the trail. She's not thinking clearly, Elena said after the call. She'll make a mistake. Around midnight my phone rang, Michael of all people. Nick. His voice was strained. Sarah contacted me. She wants money, says she's taking the kids somewhere I'll never find them, not even Jacob. Where is she? I demanded, fully awake now. I don't know exactly. She's using a burner phone. Guilt saturated every word. This is my fault too. I need to help fix it. Tell me everything she said. Every detail. Michael relayed their conversation. Sarah's increasingly erratic demands, her threats against the children if he didn't provide cash, her bizarre claims that we were all conspiring against her. She mentioned a cabin, he finished. Something about her uncle's hunting place where no one would ever look. I immediately called Detective Rivera with this information. Within an hour they had a lead, a property in Sarah's maternal uncle's name, 3 hours north in the mountains. We're sending units now, Rivera informed me. Stay where you are. We'll call when we know something. But staying put was impossible. Despite Elena's objections, I drove north through the darkness, following the GPS coordinates Rivera had reluctantly shared. 3 hours of tortuous imagining what Sarah might do, trapped in her own distorted reality with our children as hostages. I arrived as dawn broke over the pine-covered hills, staying back at the police roadblock half a mile from the cabin. SWAT teams had surrounded the property, negotiators attempting contact. Sarah's car was confirmed in the driveway. The children are inside, Rivera told me, looking exhausted. She's not responding to negotiation attempts. Hours passed in excruciating slowness. Then movement. Emma appeared at a window, her face tear-streaked but physically unharmed. Relief flooded me, followed immediately by renewed fear. Where was Jacob? We have visual on both children now, an officer reported. The boy appears to be sleeping on a couch. As the morning stretched into afternoon, Sarah finally answered the negotiators' calls. Her demands were incoherent. Immunity from prosecution, full custody, a public apology from me, money from Michael. She's agreed to release the children if you admit to abusing her, Rivera told me. On camera for the record. A false confession could compromise your case, Elena warned over the phone. I don't care about the case. I care about my children. I recorded the statement under police supervision, admitting to fabricated controlling behaviors, taking blame for a fictional version of our marriage. The negotiator played it for Sarah. Her response chilled me to the bone. Too late. He's lying anyway. I'm keeping my children safe from all of you. At dusk, thermal imaging detected movement inside the cabin. Sarah gathering items in what appeared to be the kitchen. The negotiator's phone rang again. I know you're all out there, Sarah's voice echoed through the speaker. You'll never take my children away. The SWAT commander tensed, signaling his team. She's escalating. We need to move. As officers approached the cabin from all sides, a crash of breaking glass shattered the twilight stillness. Sarah had broken a window, not to escape, but to pour something into the cabin's interior. Gas, Rivera whispered in horror. She's using the gas. Everything accelerated to blur. SWAT officers rushing the cabin. The negotiator shouting into the phone. Me breaking through the police line, running toward the only thing that mattered. Inside was chaos, Sarah screaming, match in hand as officers tackled her. Emma and Jacob huddled together in a corner, terrified but alive. The overwhelming stench of gasoline permeated everything. When they brought Sarah out in handcuffs, she looked straight through me as if I were a stranger. Her eyes, once familiar, now belonged to someone I'd never truly known. Dad. Emma's voice broke as she ran to me, Jacob following hesitantly behind. I fell to my knees, embracing them both, breathing in the scent of their hair beneath the chemical odor of disaster narrowly averted. It's over, I whispered, more to myself than to them. You're safe now. But the haunted look in my children's eyes told me that while the immediate danger had passed, the real healing had barely begun. 1 year after the cabin standoff, I stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching her practice for her upcoming recital. Her fingers moved confidently across the keys, a Chopin nocturne filling our home. Our real home, the one we'd rebuilt together, not with walls and furniture but with truth and healing. Sounds beautiful, I said when she finished. She smiled, a genuine expression that had taken months of therapy to recapture. Dr. Winters says music is good therapy. Dr. Winters, the children's psychologist, had become our family's anchor through the turbulent aftermath. Twice-weekly sessions had gradually reduced to once-monthly check-ins as the children processed their trauma. Dad. Jacob called from the backyard. Can you pitch for me? I want to practice my swing. I found him in the yard, baseball cap askew, determination on his face. At 10 he was coming into his own, working through his confusion with the help of therapy and, surprisingly, baseball. Nice hit. I called as he connected with my pitch, sending the ball soaring over the fence. That's definitely a home run. The DNA test had confirmed what we already knew. Michael was Jacob's biological father. But biology wasn't destiny, and Jacob remained my son in every way that mattered. After initial reluctance, Michael had agreed to pay child support but made no claim for parental rights, recognizing the damage his choices had caused. My phone buzzed with a text from Danielle, checking in before her weekly visit. She had become an unexpected constant in our lives, helping the children maintain a sense of connection to the healthy parts of their past. Inside, I reviewed the final divorce settlement Elena had sent over. The court had awarded me full custody, with Sarah permitted only supervised visits after completing court-mandated psychiatric treatment. The restraining order remained in place, renewable annually if needed. Sarah had been diagnosed with a combination of narcissistic and borderline personality disorders, compounded by years without proper medication. The court had committed her to a psychiatric facility after she was deemed unfit to stand trial for attempted arson and child endangerment. Her doctors reported little progress. She remained convinced of her victimhood, refusing to acknowledge the reality of her actions or their impact on the children. The financial settlement had been straightforward after the court discovered the extent of Sarah's deception. The house remained mine along with the majority of our assets. The offshore accounts she'd hidden were ordered returned and divided equitably, though recovering those funds remained an ongoing process. My professional life had slowly rebuilt as well. After a formal apology from the company, I returned to my position with a clarity born from adversity. Michael, however, had been terminated for ethical violations once the full story emerged. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Elena stood on the porch, briefcase in hand, her professional demeanor softened by a genuine smile. "The foundation paperwork is finalized," she announced, following me into the kitchen. "You're officially incorporated as a nonprofit. The Men's Justice Initiative, my response to the systemic bias I'd encountered, would provide resources and support for men falsely accused in domestic situations. Already, 3 cases similar to mine had found their way to our fledgling organization. "I couldn't have done this without you," I told Elena, reviewing the documents. "You did the hard part," she replied. "Surviving with your humanity intact." Later that evening, after the children were asleep, I sat on the back porch with the manuscript that had become both therapy and purpose. Falsely Accused, A Father's Fight for Justice would be published next month, my experience transformed into a resource for others facing similar battles. The doorbell rang again, unusual for the late hour. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery courier with an envelope requiring signature. Inside was a letter from Winter Haven Psychiatric Facility, Sarah's current residence. My hand trembled slightly as I opened it. "Dear Nick," the neat handwriting began, "I'm writing to express my deepest remorse for the pain I've caused you and our children. After months of intensive therapy and proper medication, I've come to understand the severity of my actions and the damage caused by my untreated condition." The letter continued for pages, filled with seemingly heartfelt apologies, explanations of her mental state, promises to improve, and requests to rebuild some form of relationship with the children. Once such words might have moved me. Now I recognized the familiar patterns, the carefully crafted remorse designed to manipulate, the subtle blame-shifting couched in clinical language, the underlying demand disguised as humble request. I placed the letter in my desk drawer rather than the trash. Not because I believed it, but because someday the children might need to see it to understand that some broken things stay broken, despite the prettiest promises of repair. My phone chimed with a reminder. Emma's recital tomorrow, Jacob's baseball game Saturday, and dinner with Clarissa, the trauma therapist I'd been seeing, professionally at first, then personally as healing gave way to new possibilities. Life had found its rhythm again, different but no less valuable than before. Trust came slower now, verification before belief, but also deeper appreciation for genuine connection. Outside, the night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Emma and Jacob slept peacefully upstairs, safe in the knowledge that truth had prevailed, however painful its emergence had been. I thought of Sarah in her facility, surrounded by the consequences of her choices, and felt an emotion that had taken months of therapy to identify, not hatred or even anger anymore, but a quiet pity edged with relief. Her story would always be intertwined with ours, but no longer defined it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, helping Emma overcome performance anxiety, coaching Jacob through his lingering questions about biology versus family, building something honest with Clarissa who understood brokenness and healing. But tonight, in this moment of stillness, I recognized what had seemed impossible during those dark months of accusation and isolation. We had survived not just intact, but wiser. The future stretched before us, unwritten but reclaimed. I closed the door on the night sky and headed upstairs to sleep unburdened by the weight of lies, my own or anyone else's.